All right. Hey guys, I have a little bit of an announcement to make here. This is the first ever official Planeswalker review from this channel from me. Oktagon was kind enough to hook me up with Tyvar Jubilant Brawler so that I can make a review video for you guys. And a really special shout out to Master for helping that happen. So, yeah, just putting in enough work on this channel and good things are starting to happen for it. So really excited for that. And I hope this becomes a nice partnership that keeps going on in the future. Now, with that said, I played with Tyvar for a couple days now and I have a lot of thoughts about him. But yeah, the way I'm going to do my review is going to be a little bit different format than what you're used to from this channel. And to be honest, from the other guys who do reviews, like the aforementioned Master and Nalthazar. How I'm going to do this is I'm going to directly compare him first to other planeswalkers in his color sphere. So before we do that, let's go ahead and look at his abilities and all that. So here we go. Here's how it breaks down his level. So here we're at level 1. You could kind of just look at all of these and get a good look at how his abilities raise up in level here. And in case you're wondering, what do his tokens do? We got Startled Rebirth. It's a support card with emblem. Oh, yeah. We got Startled Rebirth, which is a token that his first and third ability create. When a creature enters the battlefield from your graveyard, it gains haste until end of turn. At the end of your turn, destroy the support. Now, I wish there were a few things that were different. I wish that the creatures didn't just get haste until end of turn. And at the end of your turn, I wish this support wasn't destroyed. I don't feel like it makes a big difference. Like, I don't think it makes him overpowered to have these tokens stay on the board and permanently give your creatures haste when a creature enters the battlefield from your graveyard. I think it would be fine just to keep it with haste. I don't really get the whole end of turn, but whatever. It's not a huge deal. I wish that the support wasn't destroyed at the end of your turn, though. And then Grave Brawling. To me, this is the most interesting part of Tyvar. This new Tyvar here. It's a support card with 6 shields, and it's created with its third ability. When you match gems by swap for the first time during your turn, the first card with buried in your graveyard gains mana equal to the amount generated by the swap. Then create a Startled Rebirth token. If you can't, destroy the first creature card from your library and it gains buried X. X is that card's base mana cost. When this support's gem is matched, all cards with buried in your graveyard gain 3 mana. So that's pretty cool. And the thing about this support card is it's great when it's green, but you're less likely to hit it when it's black. So you just gotta kind of cross your fingers and hope that this support ends up on a green gem, or else you're gonna have a harder time hitting it when you're trying to convert black gems, because it's just way easier to convert to green gems than to black gems. So that's all I'm really trying to say with that. But yeah, so I'm a big fan of just like messing around with the graveyard, giving mana to cards in your graveyard, putting cards into your graveyard and all that. And I was excited to see how his abilities actually work in practice. And yeah, so I have a bit of mixed thoughts about him, but so that's kind of a breakdown of his abilities. We'll get into everything else when we do our comparison. So let's just go ahead and do that now. All right, so here are the other planeswalkers I have in this color pie. I know there's another Vraska, but we're not going to talk about her. Vraska, Relic Seeker was the first Vraska, or the first green-black planeswalker ever to make it to Magic Puzzle Quest. So I have some affinity for her, but she's definitely outclassed by modern planeswalkers. Nissa and Garruk are both excellent planeswalkers, and I would recommend most players to get them both, but especially Garruk, Curse Huntsman. Do I recommend Tyvar? Well, we'll see. So, start with hit points. Comparing them, so I put little, the blue ribbon is for who I think is the best and who is the worst. So pretty straightforward. Obviously, the more life you start with, the better. And he's got the lowest amount of life. And for the most part, it didn't affect me too much. I mean, I'm sure there were times where it would have been nice to have a little bit more HP to get myself out of a situation. But I think for the most part, if you're really getting low on health, no amount of extra hit points will help you climb back if you're just strategically overrun. So not a huge deal, but I wish he was a little bit more hardy in that regard. Mana gains. So this might be just a little bit of a bias for me, but the more mana that you get on an on-color match, the better for me. And so getting +5 black and green is great. It's got like Kazmina style mana gains, so I really like that. The -2 to blue and white don't bother me that much because having +5 on green means that you're probably going to do things that help you get those matches. So that's what I ended up doing in my builds, which I will share with you later. But yeah, I really like his mana gains. It's one of his best qualities for sure. We can talk about the other ones. Nissa and Garruk are pretty much the same. It's just that Nissa gets +2 on blue and Garruk gets 2 on red. And both very solid in that regard. I rarely have an issue with that. And then Vraska is just one of those older planeswalkers that their mana curve is just a little flatter, the older planeswalkers. And even though she's got no downsides, her lower upsides just make her slower to get everything going. You're just going to get everything else on the board quicker with other planeswalkers, and that's just such a huge deal in this game. So that's part of the reason I almost never use her. I only use her because sometimes I just run out of deck slots to do stuff with, so I'll pull out an older planeswalker for that. So that's just a little insight on how I play. So let's move on to deck load. His are fine. I always wish I had one more spell to put into every deck that I create with them. So that's kind of a bummer, but I mean, you can do fine with 6 spells and 6 supports. I think that's totally acceptable. But yeah, I just wish I had room for one more spell of some sort. But I end up trying to find a support that does the same thing for me. And the way that you can play him, he favors having a lot of creatures in his decks because of his abilities. So maybe that's not going to be that big a deal. But yeah, everybody else. My favorite, Garruk Huntsman, because he has the 7 spells. And sometimes you just want room for one more spell in your deck. And he gives you that ability. So, Vraska, Relic Speaker, or Relics, Vraska, 8 creatures. You're just never going to want 8 creatures in your deck. So, that's just nonsense. 6 spells and 5 supports. A lot of times you'll just want an extra support, or same thing. 5, anything less than 5 supports is just not acceptable to me when it comes to building decks. So she's right on the edge of being bad in that regard. So we can move on to the next one. So that's just how I feel about deck loads. So let's get into loyalty abilities and just talk about who's got the better loyalty abilities, because that's really what it comes down to with Planeswalkers, right? So creatures gain in your hand, gain haste, and I believe only till end of turn, which is, man, that would be so much better if they just permanently got haste for using your loyalty ability. The first creature in your hand gains 5 mana, which comes in handy. I'll admit that I like that. And then the Startled Rebirth token, I already told you my issues with that token. I don't love that it just gets destroyed at the end of your turn. I wish it stayed on the board, but I don't know. Maybe it'd be too overpowered, but I don't think so. That would be my main criticism about his first ability. And then Nissa, convert 2 gems to green, 2 gems to black, and creates a Shadowed Bow token that if you hit a landfall, black and green, it does some small benefits for you. Vraska's actually got my favorite first ability of everybody's here. Garruk's is pretty good. That Vanguard support losing 3 shields can really come in handy sometimes when you have a pesky support like a Teferi Vanguard on the board and you're trying, or a Tamio, and you're just trying to keep them from getting to it. So, but yeah, destroying the support with the highest shield count on your opponent's side means that her first ability is like basically having a built-in support removal card. So that's what I love about it. And then find 2 treasures is fine. Loyalty ability 2. Enable target creature and it gains haste +3 and berserker until end of turn. It's a fine ability. It's nothing great. Enabling the target creature till end of turn can come in handy, but the only problem is it doesn't work against things that permanently disable, like suppression bonds. You'll just use it and it'll just go right back to being disabled. So you got to be careful about that. Probably not going to work against Dragon Turtle either. But I have to test that actually to make sure. But yeah, it's pretty cool for if you're using cards like Selvala and Awaken the Woods, which we'll get into later because I use those creatures heavily and I was really testing out Awaken the Woods to see how I like that card, and I'll include my thoughts on that card when we get into playing with them. Nissa of Shadowed Bows, the Hissing Quagmire token, creating 6 swamp tokens or draw 2 cards. It's a surprisingly useful ability. The Hissing Quagmire token, I believe, makes a land support that converts gems to green or black, if I'm remembering that correctly. Yeah, it's an ability I use a pretty decent amount when I'm using this of Shadow Bows, but it's all about our third ability, really. But we'll get into that in a sec. Vraska's 2/2 Black Pirate token and a token support that when a when a pirate attacks, explores one and finds a treasure. It's fine, but there aren't any real pirates worth using in standard right now, so it's not a very useful ability. It's probably the worst of all these abilities. It's not very exciting. It doesn't do a lot for you, especially in the current meta. And then Garruk Huntsman has probably the best second ability in the game. Maybe only second to Kasmina's. But destroy target creature, gain life equal to its toughness, and draw 2 cards. I mean, that's just such a solid ability that can really do so much for you. It's just a lot of value packed into one ability. So really cool. And he gets my vote for the best loyalty ability. Maybe of all the abilities of all 4 of these walkers, that might be the one. And now loyalty ability 3. So this is where most planeswalkers make their money or make their way to the trash bin. So his third ability, like I mentioned before, is the most interesting and his best one by far. But it's not without its problems. Destroy the top 9 cards of your library. So that helps with a lot of different strategies there. If you're doing, mill strategies for yourself, that's going to do a lot for you. Creatures in your graveyard with cost 13 or less gain Buried Axe. Now, I don't know why it has to be cost of 13 or less. I wish they would just get rid of that, because it's not like it's that easy to cast cards from your graveyard, even with all these things helping you. So if you want to limit your deck to only creatures that cost 13 or less, I mean, there's still plenty that are good, but some of the best creatures in standard right now are going to cost more than 13 mana. So it's just a bummer that you have to limit yourself, your deck strategy, for just to be able to take advantage of this part of his ability. He'd be so much more exciting if he didn't have that. So it knocks this ability down a bit. And the Grave Brawling token is the best part of his third ability, because it does a lot for you, and if you build around it, you can get some cool stuff to happen. So for me, Nissa of Shadowed Boughs is the best third ability here. It can win games on its own for you. Create a Reclaimed Zendikon token, and each creature card in your hand gains X mana. Each land gains Y mana. X equals black gems and Y equals green gems. So the Reclaimed Zendikon token not only creates some gem conversion for you, but whenever you cast a creature, it buffs it to a great amount. You should probably do your own research on Nissa of Shadowed Boughs if you're interested in her. Garruk Huntsman's Curse Predation token. Non-humans gain 4/4 at the end of turn, and they gain Death Touch, Berserker, and Trample. And then you create 5 wolf tokens. Pretty solid ability. Definitely helps you win games on its own as well, but it is a little bit more dependent on things on the board already happening. But, 5 wolf tokens is okay to start with. But, yeah, it's more if you're already winning and it's a way to win quicker. But cool ability. And at one point, Vraska's third ability was more useful, but these days, the current meta, it's just too slow to do much of anything for you. It creates a support with 5 shields. At the beginning of each turn, opposing creatures get -2/-2. Opponents lose 5 life, and the support loses a shield. So it would be better if this support didn't reinforce and you can just have a bunch of them on the board. I mean, that would be awesome. If you had 3 of these on the board at one turn, then it's not as bad of an ability. That or just taking out the support. But if I were to choose one, I would choose that it doesn't reinforce, because that would be cool. But anyways, that's enough about Vraska. All right, so looking at everything on the whole, I just on abilities and HP alone, where do I rank him among all of our black green planeswalkers available to us? Vraska 2 is by far the worst. Don't pick her up. Vraska 1 is, I think, the worst of these 4 planeswalkers that we're looking at. Garruk is the best, I would say. I think he's top tier, S plus tier walker. He is maybe top 5 walker in the game, so it's going to be hard to make a better green black planeswalker than him. So, drumroll please, which is better, Tyvar or Nissa? At this point, I gotta say Nissa. I think that she's the number 2 best black green planeswalker, and Tyvar is number 3. I just think that his abilities are somewhat lacking, and there are some simple tweaks that if Oktagon chose to, they could tweak his abilities to make him a much better planeswalker and maybe on the level of a Nissa of Shadowed Balance. But it's not to say that he has some unique advantages of his own, especially that the +5 on green and black. So that's the thing I really like about him. And to be honest, I had a lot of fun trying to build for his abilities. And let's get into gameplay with them. Okay, so here's a lower rarity deck that I've been messing around with. It tends to be pretty resilient. I do have Awaken the Woods in it because it's a card that I'm also sort of reviewing in this video as well. Show you if it's worth buying for money or not. So yeah, the idea is just to try and convert a lot of gems to green and get things going that way, and has a decent amount of removal. Conclave Naturalist. Then Reclusive Taxidermist is not a bad little card. At the beginning of your turn, convert 3 gems to green, and when this creature enters the battlefield, if there are 4 more creatures in your graveyard, this creature gets +2/+3, so that's okay. And then this creature has Blitz, and I'm hoping that with this third ability out, you get this guy coming back to the battlefield and giving you 15 mana every time it leaves the battlefield. So that's the idea there, and let's see how it goes. So this is a cool battle. It's against another Tyvar, so see how it goes. You want to keep Awaken the Woods in your hand so that you first convert a lot of mana or a lot of gems to green and match them. The more you can hold off, the better there. I would say you want to get the cards level to 5 or so before you cast it. So we might be ready for it now. So Vala is interesting. Yeah, there we go. Broker's Charm is a great draw tool in this deck, so it's good to have. And I'll show you how his second ability works. We enabled it. And of course that will work with Selvala or Deathbloom Ritualist as well. So most of the time I'm using this guy to convert gems to green until I have no reason to. Don't need them now, but we'll keep them in our graveyard until we need to use them. So let's see what our graveyard looks like. Got Kaldaya Star Arm down there. Got a bunch of creatures in our graveyard. Don't need them yet. So just spamming his third ability and seeing what else we could get mana into. So we got 2 of the Kaldaya Strong Arms. Getting lots of green matches at the same time. So we got a Reclusive Taxidermist that came out of our graveyard. So that's what happened there. Thanks to our ability. Cool, we got an Evoke Despair that we can use to get rid of his Vanguard. So that's good. Get some card draw, which is also good. Conclave Naturalist came out of the graveyard. So things are rolling. So now that Strong Arm can come out. Okay, we get another Awaken the Woods, and that will give us a bunch of reinforcements. Let's go ahead and lose the Blitz. Target creature gets +2/+2. So we're buffing up our creatures. Okay, we're getting a decent amount of them out. It's not bad. Let's just go ahead and attack with them this time. Instead of converting gems, we're doing pretty well there. We have another Awaken the Woods to drop on him. Hit his third ability again. Match the support gem, because when you match all cards with berries in your graveyard, gain 3 mana. So that's also cool. So we're getting a bunch of Conclave Naturalists or Reclusive Taxidermists. If I want to put a Conclave Naturalist on the board, that's there for me as well, but I don't think we'll need to. All right, so that is the best case scenario for that deck. And yeah, the only thing is it's slow to get going as far as damage goes. I mean, it lacks a lot of firepower, so if you can build something with a stronger creature or a way to grow your creatures a little better, then do that. But as far as a shelf for lower rarity cards go, it's not bad. So hopefully those of you who don't have a huge collection can build something similar and hopefully make it better with cards that you own. All right, let's move on to the deck that I've been using the most with him so far. Okay, so here's a more mythic heavy version of this deck that has kind of the same principles, just upgraded in a lot of different ways. So we got Angel of Suffering and Vivian on the Hunt to fill up our graveyard, Renin 6 to take advantage of all that, and Portal to Phyrexia, of course, is a great board wipe for your side, or for your opponent's side, but also it's gonna bring back creatures from your graveyard or theirs if you want, but mostly want things from our graveyard. So we're gonna be able to grab an Angel of Suffering or Zerator's Envoy whenever we want at the beginning of our turn, if we choose to do so. And then, of course, we have Invoke Despair and Snuff Out for removal, and then Awaken the Woods because we're still showcasing that. So let's show you how it goes. All right, so let's get the Envoy down first. Go ahead and give him Blitz. So now we got two good cards in our hand, but we're gonna disable Awaken the Woods until we raise its level up a bit. And there's one. I think that's two. Was hoping you wouldn't take that. Alright, so Awaken the Woods is only at 3. Let's see. What is his first ability? Great Style Reamer. First card gain mana, gains 5 mana. Don't need it. Is that the best? I guess so. I was hoping to get the portal out. But we'll do that right now. Okay, what's our Awaken the Woods level at? Okay, that's acceptable. Destroy the top 9 cards of our library. So start matching green gems and then get some mana onto our creatures in our hands or in our graveyard. So let's see. Does that do anything? Pretty good level. All right, yeah, it did. So we get our Envoy out. That's fine. Okay. Convert. Let's take that first. Get our Envoy back. So we got a Startled Rebirth, gains haste, and your turn destroys support. So that's doing well for us. Cool, another Awaken the Woods. Portal. Get an Envoy back. Matching a ton of green gems, so that means we're gonna put a bunch of mana into our creatures in our graveyard, so that's good. Hit that. Bring an Envoy back. Oh, we got 6 levels on our Awaken the Woods in our hand, so that's also great. And we just keep filling up our graveyard for his third ability to keep doing stuff for us. So yeah, that's a lot of reinforcements on our Awaken the Woods. Go ahead and do that. Portal. Let's get an Envoy down. Destroy some cards. Just flood the board with gems. So things are going beautifully for us right now. Let's see. Got Angel of Suffering coming. Gonna put some mana into our other creatures. And then just for fun, let's go ahead and do this. Oh, that was cool. Just to show you what that looks like. See what's in our graveyard, see if anything's going to come out. We only have one creature in our graveyard right now, but that's okay. Snuff them out. So yeah, pretty cool. That's kind of best case scenario of how this deck tends to work out. Had things in hand pretty early on in the battle, and then just kept rolling and used his abilities to just keep getting things out of the graveyard. So that's the fun part of using Tyvar. So yeah, let me just show you one last deck, and it's a little bit less reliant on his abilities, but it just show you the power of his mana load. Okay, well, this deck here is pretty simple. Just build up your elementals with Colony Garden and Dried Arbor and Nissa's Expedition. Selvala is there along with Awaken the Woods. I just wanted to test how effective each one is. So Awaken the Woods is only 6 mana to cast, but Selvala is 14, but it might be a better card. And then Lambhole Elder is just there to take advantage of all the creature tokens we're going to create. And then Portal to Phyrexia, Void Rend, Invoke Despair, and Snuff Out. Those are good removal cards, all of them. And then, of course, we know why Portal to Phyrexia is good. And then Invoke Despair also gives us some card draw, so that's also awesome. So, pretty simple, straightforward deck. Just uses a lot of mana to create a huge stack of elementals to beat your opponent down with. So let's show you how it goes. Gonna get some good mana conversion going here. Don't need the Lambhole Elder yet. It's not gonna do a whole lot for us quite yet until we get some other creatures on the board. This is Expedition. Okay, we got a Colony Garden with this is Expedition, so I'm alright with putting the Lambhole Elder on the board now. Okay, we got one Lambhole Elder in the graveyard, which we just took out. Converting tons of gems with her ability there. Get that out of here. This is Expedition. Get Dryad Arbor down. Getting a bunch of Lambholts on the battlefield. Let's do one more time. That didn't really showcase most of our deck. It won too quickly, so we'll do one more. So Vala, there we go. Get to showcase that part. Then we get an Awaken the Woods. So, all right, awesome. See if we can build up the level a bit. Only 3. No, we'll wait. Now she's got Leyline, which will build up our Solvala. Which is good. Yeah, now we can Awaken the Woods. Because why not? Portal. Don't need any of these, but take it out of their graveyard and put it into ours. So since she's got Leyline, she can buff herself up pretty well. And she's converting gems. So we got 3 creatures on the battlefield converting a truckload of gems for us. Just pretty fun. Let's see what's in our graveyard. We got one of his crappy creatures, but we also have Solvala. Okay, let's match that so we get some mana into our graveyard creatures. So there's a Solvala. Don't need him. And there we go. So the funny thing about this deck is it sped up considerably when I ignored building around his abilities, which is never a good sign when it comes to evaluating Planeswalkers. So you could also think of him in that way where you're like, okay, well, I'm converting tons of green gems and those green matches are giving me 8 mana clip. So you can build your deck with that in mind and not worry about his abilities. But, you know, there are other Planeswalkers that you can do that with. Like if you don't have Garruk Huntsman, you can build the same deck and take advantage of his abilities because they're a lot more universal. Nissa of Shadow Battles, not as much. You still have to build around her abilities to make use of them. And we already know what the issues are with Vraska. So, yeah, as you also saw, Awaken the Woods can be cool, but I honestly think Selvala is better. And when it comes to raising the level of that card, if you have a way to create a lot of green gems to build up that level, it's probably not that necessary to even have Awaken the Woods, because since your deck is already doing what that card is supposed to do. So that's something to think about if you're thinking of picking up Awaken the Woods. It's a pretty cool card, but there's just like a bit of a catch-22 to using it. So yeah, there is my review of Tyvar Jubilant Brawler. I think I did a pretty thorough examination of him and his abilities. I would probably go ahead and agree with Gaussmaster and put him in a B tier. That mana gain is really solid, and it's probably the best thing he's got going for him. His third ability can be fun if you build around it, but it's not super necessary to do so, and it kind of slows your deck down to build for his abilities. So yeah, he's kind of a cool green-black beatdown type of planeswalker. So if that's something that interests you, then I would recommend him. But if you're a little bit more into the strategies of things, then maybe not. So, all right, have fun, and thank you so much again, Oktagon, for letting me review him, and I'll see you guys in the next video.